And welcome to the last lecture of the second section. We're going to talk about fetal circulation. And here you can see fetal circulation. I'm going to walk you through this model. So you know normal circulation through a newborn is going to be from the right atrium through the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle, out through the pulmonary semilunar valve to the pulmonary artery, and then out to the lungs, right? And then blood comes back, and here you can see right out to the lungs. Blood comes back through these four pulmonary veins to the left atrium, then down through the bicuspid or mitral valve to the left ventricle, and then out through the aorta and to the body. And it's in the lungs where we get gas exchange. But in the fetus, that doesn't occur. So the fetus actually gets all of its nutrients from mom through the placenta. The placenta is going to be attached directly to the uterus, and blood vessels actually are produced during pregnancy that feed the baby. And so we have this long umbilical artery here. Or I'm sorry, I totally said that wrong. We have this long umbilical vein here. And we have these different arteries coming down. Okay, and then here's your inferior vena cava. This is your aorta. Colors are a little different for the fetus because we always assume red is oxygen rich. There we go. And blue is oxygen poor. So purple is like oxygen mixed, okay? And so what's happening is oxygen from mom's blood moves in to the placenta and is transferred to the umbilical vein. The umbilical vein is oxygen rich. It brings blood to the inferior vena cava, which is oxygen poor. So the blood that enters the right atrium is going to be oxygen mixed. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's going to be more of a purplish color. Now, some of the blood is going to go right from the right atrium down to the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve, but most of the blood is going to be shunted from the right atrium to the left atrium through this hole that they call the Foramen Ovale, which I talked about a little while ago. The Foramen Ovale allows blood to move from the right atrium to the left atrium, bypassing the lungs. There's a reason for this. Our lungs don't work. We're in the fetal development. The lungs are the last organs to actually start working. So they're very immature. They're not going to give any nutrients. Some blood is still going to move out from the right atrium to the right ventricle and out towards the lungs. But even the blood that goes towards the lungs is going to get shunted from the pulmonary trunk directly to the aorta. And that is through the, hold on, I want to make sure I don't say the wrong name. The pulmonary trunk, and then shunted through the ductus arteriosus. That's what I thought. The ductus arteriosus right here, I could have looked there too, I guess. Oh well. I like to do it the hard way, you know me. So blood moves from the pulmonary trunk through the ductus arteriosus to the aorta. And then it's going to move out. So we get oxygen mixed blood moving out that's going to nourish all the body tissues. And the blood that comes back is going to be oxygen poor through all the veins going back up. But we also have blood coming in that is going to be oxygen rich from the placenta. The baby or the fetus has a higher affinity. The hemoglobin in the fetus has a much higher affinity for oxygen. So the majority of oxygen that moves in mom is going to move over to the fetus, which is why mom's respiratory rate increases, as does her blood pressure, and the amount of blood she has in her system has to increase to feed both the fetus and herself. This will allow the baby to get all of its nutrients, even though the majority of the blood is always going to be oxygen mixed. And then once the baby is born, this foramen ovale is going to close up within 24 hours. The ductus arteriosus is also going to close up and become a ligament. So I just mentioned this, but with the first breath, the change in the pressure in the thoracic cavity is going to cause the foramen ovale to close. And within the first 24 hours, that ductus arteriosus will close up, becoming the ligamentum arteriosum. And I don't even have it on here, I'm sorry. The umbilical artery and vein become round ligaments and medial umbilical ligaments for the liver. Okay. The ligamentum, or the ductus venosus, becomes the ligamentum venosum. There's my ductus arteriosus, which I talked about already. Will close very rapidly after birth, and the foramen ovale also closes after birth. So, if you have questions, you do need to know the flow of blood through the heart of a newborn or of a normal blood flow. You also need to know the flow of blood through the heart of the fetus and how blood is getting oxygen rich, okay? So this is important. If you don't understand this, this is something you need to ask me, because I can draw it on the board and I can make you understand it, okay? You have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.